All right, I'm getting back to the point of the message with this one, and it's actually the point of this is a heavier one, which is why I'm not putting my face on this one. Not that I haven't put my face on other videos, but just because these type of some of the statements I'm going to make, you just don't need to associate that type of conversation with a face. But what I was saying is that a lot of things are symbiotic. Even predator and prey can be appreciated as symbiotic, as the one helps the other. But it's a deep thing. It's a deep communion, deeper than deep. A sacrifice. Don't maybe the deepest form of one of the deepest, probably the deepest form of love would probably be maybe both fun, but then also sacrifice, because the fun leads to sacrifice. You have fun with someone, and now you have something to raise together. So the fun led to the sacrifice, but then the sacrifice also led to maybe other people having the ability to have fun. But a lot of things are actually are very deep in a communion, the deepest communion. But the deepest communion would involve probably at least worship and sacrifice, and maybe worship is a form of sacrifice, and sacrifice is a form of worship. And that's actually how beautiful it is, yet deep it is, when we do things just like eating on a daily basis. You forget or you may forget that something actually had to lose its opportunity at liberty, and walking upon the earth, so that you could have liberty and walk upon the earth when you consume something. But it doesn't have to be bad. It can actually be beautiful if it's within the bounds of nature. I had a friend at a job that was Native American, and I never met anyone that had more respect for animals than that man. And I know that man and some of the people that he comes from, and people like the people he comes from, they actually respect the balances of nature. And if you meet a person like him, from a native background, they don't flinch. They're not shy around pain, around violence, around death in itself. They're more so taken aback by waste and overconsumption is what would take someone aback. They didn't have in the old days. They didn't have a problem slaying buffalo. They had a problem with people overslaying buffalo, which is why we don't have buffalo anymore, generally speaking. And that's what the real tragedy, that's what the real horror, that's what the real fright is. If you can appreciate that. So if buffalo were the food source for the Native American, now where I live, we don't see as many indigenous native people to the region where we're at. Generally speaking, I saw a beautiful native brother on Easter about a day ago, and that's the only time I had met a native person before that had been a very strong man who was training me at a construction training that I didn't make it at. I didn't cut it there. I didn't flesh out there. And then before that, I had a coworker at a job who was Native American, and she's one of the most beautiful people that I've seen before in terms of her work ethic and her grace and her appearance. But I really don't see too many Native people. But is it interesting that just like we don't see a lot of buffalo, we don't see a lot of Native American people in the United States? And I don't think that's a coincidence, because as I'm saying that maybe the deer and the wolf are yet the same person, the same being, different iterations and expressions of the same being that serve the same purpose of carrying on life. The the nature needs the deer, and nature needs the wolf, and the wolf needs the deer, and the deer needs the wolf, and the wolf and the deer need nature. That's one group. That's one family in nature. The food source, and the source of the food, and the food source, and you could say that same relationship exists within all things, and all things are one another, and all things are all things. But it gets more intimate and defined in specific groups and cohorts. Just like you have deep bonds between all kinds of people. That bonding is very similar between all people, but yet it's unique in its expression and its purposes between different people. So even though I am all people, I respect all people, I love all people, if I see two lovers holding hands and I go up and start hanging out with them, that wouldn't be appropriate, because that's not the nature or the purpose of that bond, nor my purposes in life presently, and what I mean to an environment. So it's they have their own thing going on, is what I'm saying, and they're very important to one another, and they are sustenance to one another, as the deer is sustenance to the wolf, and the wolf is sustenance to the deer. But we could also say the Native American had been sustenance to the buffalo, and the buffalo had been sustenance to the Native Americans, and we saw a genocide of both the Native Americans and the buffalo, and I wanted to point that out. But what I was saying in this, and where I was going with this series, is that a lot of things There was one more thing I wanted to say with this, and I'll try to go quickly, is that we can do very well. So you don't actually know what you saw a lot of times, and sometimes you don't know that you actually saw a key sometimes. So there had been a few keys available. You might actually come across a real key in life. And I would say that maybe whatever comfort you have, whatever advantage you have, whatever health you have, whatever leisure you have, as you're enjoying, appreciating something like this video, I hope you appreciate it, or at least enjoy it, or can have recognize value, take value in the greatest sense if possible, would be that you had recognized a key of some kind, or been presented with a key or some kind, and actually been interested in it and picked it up and worked with it, maybe disciplined yourself with it and engaged with it and got value from it, and that served you very well over a lifetime. There's only a few very critical moves or decisions or undertakings that we do that serve us very well and see us very far in life. And they're available, and sometimes we look right past them, or sometimes we pick them up and they change things for us, and that's our real blessing. But blessing might be a little bit too fancy, because that sounds like something to be enjoyed, but it's our real key. Maybe a better word than blessing is just key, something that works for us, that helps us do our purpose and path on this earth. Both the painful and rigorous things we need to do, but also the things we get to enjoy, had been keys. So one key that was presented on YouTube, I think, is that when a brother, a friend, an associate, an influencer collaborating with Real Social Dynamics in the past, said that you can enjoy and access almost any experience or accomplishment simply in terms of engaging it through discipline. That had been a key right there. I watched the one of the series on style by the great late Kevin Samuels, where he was talking about men should lead with their wallet, and some of his ideas about work ethic, but also style and intact for men, helped me to amount to being a professional, and that helped, that changed, that gave me confidence and style and more success around men and women and even children, because my professional role was with children. So I got better in life with people of all grades of life and a lot of different backgrounds by that specific content by Kevin Samuels, and also that comment by that other influencer about discipline. But what I want to say is that in discipline, probably the most profound form of discipline is to discipline awareness, to discipline attention. That's the first thing that many people are taught in a military venue. If you go to join the military, heaven forbid, unless you have a good purpose, the first thing you may do is be on a bus of some kind, and you wouldn't be allowed to look at, you'd be commanded to look at your feet, almost similar to I'm showing my feet in this video. As you drive past different, you would be curious where you are. But actually, they say, I think part of disorienting the recruits, like I think in the past they took certain military people on the other side of the Mississippi River. Like people from the Western United States would go to the Eastern training facility. People from the East would go to the Western training facility, and then landing there, they would be disoriented going into the training, and that disorientation helps make the training more visceral. It's part of the training, but also just being aware, focusing on what you're told to focus on, while different things that would be interesting or distracting or going by you, is one of the things that can really do you a service in life, in a martial setting, but also in life, just disciplining your awareness. So I would say that one way of disciplining your awareness would be but if you just try to ignore or focus on details, you can get lost in tangents and habits of thought. But if you have a method and a reason for looking at different things, you can decipher an environment quickly, and it also have purpose and reason, and you don't get stuck on things. So one way is to appreciate the color yellow, because normally the color yellow doesn't appear without a purpose, generally speaking, like as far as like signs in at least in urban society. Usually yellow is not employed for specifically artistic or advertising purposes, though it can be, but a lot of times there's a real reason when you see yellow anything. But if you can just look at colors in general and say, why was that color used there? Why was that color of light? Why was that color used right there? You will see patterns in that, and then thereby when you go through an environment, you're aware of different details than you otherwise would be, because you go straight to the colors. But then you're disciplining yourself from different things that would distract your attention otherwise, and you're seeing purpose now, because you're seeing you're recognizing patterns again, color again, and you had thought about that color in a different context, and how it was and where and the reason it was employed, and now you're recognizing it being employed again in the same way for a singular purpose. So now you can decipher things differently, but also you can control your awareness differently, is where I'm going with that.